Monday could become another pivotal day in a war that has already reshaped the Middle East. Iran's ambassador to Russia has now confirmed that Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi will be in Moscow on Monday, a visit that comes at the same moment Gaza is once again absorbing deadly Israeli strikes, mounting civilian losses, and the steady collapse of public order. On the surface, these may look like two separate stories. One is diplomacy in Moscow, the other is bloodshed in Gaza. In reality, they are part of the same widening crisis, because when Iranian officials travel to Russia during a regional war, timing matters. And when police forces inside Gaza are struck during an active humanitarian collapse, strategy matters. The latest violence across Gaza killed at least 12 Palestinians, according to medics on the ground. Among the dead were 6 police officers. That number alone reveals something larger than another round of bombardment. Police officers in Gaza are not frontline soldiers in the conventional sense. They are often involved in traffic control, securing aid deliveries, crowd management, and trying to maintain some level of civil order inside a territory devastated by war, displacement, and hunger. When police are killed, the consequences spread far beyond the immediate blast zone. According to medical sources, one Israeli strike in Gaza City killed 3 people, including 2 police officers. In Beit Lahia, tank shelling killed 2 more people. And in Khan Yunis, a separate strike killed 7 people, including 4 police officers. Witnesses said the Khan Yunis strike hit a police vehicle near a wedding hall. That detail matters. A wedding hall is not a battlefield image. It is a civilian image. A reminder that in Gaza, war now moves through streets, neighborhoods, family spaces, and every symbol of normal life that still remains standing. Gaza's Interior Ministry said the police force was deliberately targeted and accused Israel of trying to undermine efforts to maintain basic order inside the besieged enclave. Israel's military confirmed it carried out a strike in Gaza City, even as ceasefire understandings have repeatedly been discussed, announced, or partially implemented, only to fracture again. That contrast has become one of the defining realities of this war. Official language speaks of precision operations, security goals, and tactical necessity. Ground reality often looks like funerals, wrecked streets, displaced families, and institutions collapsing one strike at a time. To understand why attacks on police units matter so much, it is necessary to understand what Gaza currently is. It is not simply a war zone. It is a sealed, overcrowded enclave where hundreds of thousands depend on aid, where infrastructure has been heavily damaged, where hospitals are overwhelmed, where communication systems have repeatedly broken down, and where ordinary governance has been pushed to the edge. In that environment, police forces become one of the last functioning mechanisms of daily order. They direct traffic when roads are shattered. They try to separate desperate crowds during aid distributions. They respond to theft, disputes, panic, and disorder. They become the thin line between misery and total breakdown. So when those officers are killed, the immediate toll is counted in bodies. The delayed toll is counted in chaos. That is why Gaza officials say these strikes are about more than tactical targets. They argue the broader objective is to dismantle any remaining governing capacity in the territory. Israel rejects accusations of intentionally targeting civilians and says it acts against militant infrastructure and security threats. But the war has repeatedly shown how blurred those categories become in dense urban conflict, especially when public institutions, security bodies, and civilian life operate side by side in one of the most crowded places on Earth. Now place that reality next to Monday's diplomatic development. Iran's top diplomat traveling to Moscow is not routine scheduling. Russia and Iran have drawn closer in recent years through defense cooperation, economic ties, and shared opposition to Western pressure. Russia also maintains relations with Israel, Arab states, and multiple actors across the region. That gives Moscow a rare position. It speaks to rivals who often do not speak directly to each other. So when Araghchi arrives in Moscow during renewed Gaza strikes, analysts will be watching for several possibilities. First, coordination. Iran supports a network of regional allies and armed groups. Every escalation in Gaza creates pressure across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and beyond. Moscow may seek clarity on Tehran's next moves. Second, leverage. Russia benefits strategically when U.S. attention is divided across multiple crises. A prolonged Middle East emergency can distract Washington from Europe, Ukraine, and other theaters. Third, containment. Even countries that gain leverage from instability do not necessarily want uncontrolled regional war. Missile exchanges, shipping disruptions, oil shocks, and accidental escalation can spiral beyond anyone's plan. That makes diplomacy urgent, even when it appears symbolic, and symbolism itself matters. A confirmed trip to Moscow signals that Iran wants to be seen consulting a major power while Gaza burns. It projects relevance, it projects options. It reminds adversaries that Tehran is not isolated. Meanwhile, inside Gaza, people are dealing with a much more immediate calculation: survival by the hour. For civilians there, geopolitical chessboards mean little when ambulances are moving, communications are unstable, and local order is fraying. This gap between high diplomacy and street-level suffering is one of the central truths of modern conflict. Leaders travel, statements are issued, meetings occur behind closed doors, and on the ground, ordinary people absorb the cost. The strike in Khan Yunis near a wedding hall also reflects another recurring feature of this war: no clear separation between wartime and peacetime spaces. Markets become danger zones, schools become shelters, hospitals become command centers for emergency response, celebration venues become sites of death. That constant overlap deepens trauma long after any ceasefire. It changes how communities remember streets, buildings, and neighborhoods. It turns daily life into a map of loss. Legally and politically, attacks on police and civil personnel can also trigger scrutiny. Under international humanitarian law, each strike depends on facts such as target status, military necessity, proportionality, and precautions taken. Those determinations are difficult in real time and fiercely contested after the fact. But the broader pattern matters politically. If institutions needed for civilian survival are repeatedly degraded, international criticism grows stronger, especially among states already alarmed by humanitarian conditions in Gaza. That can affect diplomatic recognition moves, sanctions debates, arms transfer reviews, and public pressure campaigns abroad. So while one strike may seem tactical, repeated strikes can become strategic liabilities. Israel faces its own calculations. Its leadership argues that Hamas and allied groups embed within civilian environments, exploit public infrastructure, and blur military and civilian roles. From that perspective, operations against security-linked targets are presented as necessary. But the longer the war continues, the harder it becomes to separate battlefield success from political cost. Every destroyed institution may remove one problem while creating three more: disorder, radicalization, and international isolation. That is the paradox of modern counterinsurgency warfare. Winning space is easier than governing aftermath. Destroying structures is easier than replacing order. And in Gaza, order is already scarce. Now zoom out further. Iran in Moscow, Gaza under fire, Russia balancing influence, the United States tied to Israel but facing global criticism, Arab governments pressured by outraged public opinion, energy markets watching every headline, aid agencies warning of collapse. This is no longer a contained conflict, it is a regional stress test. If Gaza's governance systems keep breaking down, pressure grows on neighboring countries to respond politically, financially, or through border policy. If Iran feels compelled to show stronger resistance credentials, proxy fronts could heat up. If Russia sees diplomatic openings, it may expand its mediator posture. If Washington doubles down militarily, rival powers may harden against it. Every local strike now carries international echoes, and Monday's Moscow meeting could provide clues about how major actors intend to navigate the next phase. Will Iran seek restraint while preserving deterrence? Will Russia offer mediation channels? Will new messaging emerge toward Israel, the United States, or regional militias? Or will the meeting simply confirm that all sides are preparing for a longer confrontation? Back in Gaza, however, time is measured differently, not in summit schedules, not in diplomatic calendars. but in fuel remaining, medicine available, roads passable, relatives reachable, and whether local institutions can function one more day. That is why the deaths of 6 police officers in one day matter so deeply. Because in a shattered territory, governance is not an abstract word. It can mean whether aid trucks move, whether crowds stay calm, whether families can travel safely, whether panic spreads, whether collapse accelerates, and that may be the hidden story beneath the headline numbers. Not only the people killed, but the systems being erased around them. As Iran's foreign minister heads to Moscow, one arena will be discussing influence, deterrence, and regional strategy. Another arena in Gaza is fighting to preserve the most basic form of public life. Those two arenas are now connected, and what happens in one may soon shape the fate of the other.